One. Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor-in-chief of Retail Insider. Joining me today is Thom Mahler, who is Director of Downtown Strategy for the City of Calgary. Thanks, Tom, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mario.
We're going to talk about downtown strategy because it's become an important part of the city and also across the country of different initiatives out there. But give us, first of all, Tom, the history of how and why the downtown strategy came about.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to 2014. That's kind of when it started for Calgary. It was really the oil crash, and when we had this huge vacancy increasing because the layoffs in the oil patch. We waited around for a while to see. Usually things came back in Calgary, but what we found was it wasn't coming back soon enough, and property values really started to drop. So it was, in and around 2018 or so, where we really started to see property values. They lost a total of over $16 billion in the 4 years from 2014, and that was a huge impact on the city relative to our ability to collect property tax revenue off of the properties within our city. The downtown had an overweight status in our portfolio of lands, and it contributed a huge amount to our property tax revenue. So when those values dropped, we still needed the same amount of money to run the operations of the city. So how it works in Calgary is it's called a revenue neutral tax system. We then had to collect additional money from non-residential properties across the city. So property tax bills for people outside of the downtown core really started to skyrocket. So that could be a small business who owned their own building. It could be a strip mall. It could have been an industrial operation. But in some cases, their property tax bills went up, over 40%, even though the value of their property didn't. And so, what council did to address that at the time is they instituted something called the phased tax plan, and that allowed the city to subsidize and lessen the impact of those experiencing these significant property tax increases. But we did that for a few years, and then we still realized that the property tax was not coming back downtown, and it was really through Calgary Economic Development and their real estate sector advisory committee at the time, where we said we need to do something. Like, we can't continue to just offset tax of some property owners with general city money. So this idea of how do we regenerate the downtown to bring back property tax values really gained traction. And that's really the genesis, Mario, of why the downtown strategy was so important to our city council. It was, in many respects, it was less about downtown. It was more about the financial viability of our city, but also the net property tax impacts on business outside of the core.
Now, when anybody talks about downtown strategy, I know there's, probably a number of different components to it, but the one thing that is front and center is the conversions of
Yeah.
the of office space into residential. Can you first maybe explain a little bit of, give me first of all, I guess the scope of how many projects, how many rental or units, housing units are being created, and maybe just explain how it works.
Yeah, so to date, we've through our office conversion program, and it's not just for, we actually can use some of our money for other uses other than residential. So we have done one other hotel as well, and we have a separate program for post-secondary. So maybe I can speak to that after. But for just the residential and hotel, we have funding agreements in place for 11 projects that are uh, under construction in various stages, and one hotel. So those 11 projects includes one hotel, 10 residential projects, and in total that's about 1,500 units that would be delivered based on the plans that have been submitted by the developers. And then we do a little translation for how many people is that? That would be an additional 2,400 residents in the downtown area. So that's, at this point, that's the total impact.
And you did mention, post-secondary. I know recently there was announcement that the School of Architecture and at the University of Calgary was coming downtown to the old Nexon building. That's the way people kind of remember it.
Yes, yeah.
We're talking like another like 12, I think it was like 1,200 students coming in down there as well.
Yeah, so they currently have the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape has some presence in the old Central Library, the Castell building. But this is actually a move to bring their entire School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape down. So that's including that's all the students and faculty that they have up on main campus, and they're growing that program. So it's being designed for 1,200 students, and that include over and above that would be the faculty and other staff that would be operating in that space. And it's about 180,000 square feet that they're taking over in the old Nexon building.
So this has got to be pretty good news for the in I guess the businesses down there that are retail related, hospitality related, all the restaurants and food service places to have this number of people, number of new people coming down here.
And that's exactly the goal. Like I do remember when especially when the pandemic hit, it was so obvious, right? When there was no office workers downtown, there was nobody to eat in those restaurants in the plus 15 and street level. And but if you looked at areas like 17th Avenue or Mission or Kensington or Bridgeland, those neighborhoods and those businesses still did quite well because there was residents there, and those were the local businesses. So that's really the idea now behind the downtown, is to make it much more of a neighborhood where there's a lot more people living, going to school. We still have workers, but we always want office workers downtown. But it gives the businesses down there a much broader market to draw from. They don't have to rely on the breakfast lunch crowd. Now they've got weekend opportunities, evening opportunities, um, different kinds of events. And so it diversifies their market. But obviously there's an adjustment period between the way it was and the way it's going to be. But we see positive signs. I think we've seen retail vacancy rates stabilize a little bit downtown, and in some cases reducing. So we're optimistic we're on the right track, but we still have a ton of work to do.
Now, when you're looking at that having that number of people coming downtown now, do you think that's becoming more attractive for businesses to contemplate moving, or setting up shop downtown, whether they're a retail outlet or whether they're a restaurant or food place?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a change in the types of businesses. Like, unfortunately, some businesses did have to close their doors, but now, as spaces are available, we are seeing a different kind of business come in. Um, I kind of remember at the peak in 2013 of our downtown, and it was really like it was the high end business lunch kind of restaurants that were fantastic downtown, right? But it didn't cater to the local residents as much. They would still, local residents would still go to 17th Avenue, Inglewood, Bridgeland. But now we're starting to see this diversification of the types of food services and retail operations that are locating downtown. It's not all catered towards the professional, generally well-paid office worker. So even at the retail side, like that, it was really interesting to see the Value Village boutique go into that old space, right? It's something that caters to a younger crowd. The younger demographic loves thrifting. They love the hunt and the thrill of the chase of looking for something unique. And so it's a really cool business. At first glance, people might have thought, well, that's an interesting business to be downtown, but it actually shows, it's a different market that's developing in the core.
Beyond the stuff that you've mentioned, Tom, that's going on and has taken place, are we looking at more? Are we looking at more conversions to come?
Yeah, so we do have we received additional funding through the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund program. So we had opened up another window of applications last year in September, and we've evaluated. So we've been waiting for the federal election to conclude, and then we're hoping to be able to make some additional announcements on the projects that can be funded through that tranche of funding. And then, longer term, we continue to evaluate the results of the program and assess the depth of the market for this kind of thing, to see whether or not we would look for more funding. But I can say we see an increasing number of investors from outside of our market coming to Calgary to look for acquiring office buildings because they're available, but they're also trading. We've actually had, since 2021, 19 office buildings have actually changed hands, which shows that people see a future for these buildings. They're not investing in them, or they're not buying them to tear them down. They're buying them to repurpose them, either for upgrading them for office and making them more of a modern workplace, but also could they convert them to things like post-secondary institutions, housing, and hotels.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Tom, like the issue of safety downtown. Now, it's not
Yeah.
a Calgary only issue. It's across every major city in probably North America these days, right?
Mhm.
Got the homeless situation, but then you've got some, the crime and stuff like that. First of all, how has that impacted those businesses that are down there? And I guess where are we at in terms of combating that?
Well, maybe the most important thing to say, Mario, is that we are aware that it's a challenge, and at a very personal level, right? Like people who do operate, particularly street level plus 15 businesses, especially if you're hospitality or restaurant and you're welcoming guests into the stores, and you can look in the office buildings and the lobbies, everybody's dealing with issues of security. They are worried about, they get scared because of the nature of the behaviors of some of the individuals on the street. But one of the things that we know at the city is that, we've taken a very compassionate approach to how we deal with the issue, and so it's about taking a multidimensional approach to addressing the impact. So it includes enforcement, it includes dealing with those behaviors that can be a real challenge for business, but it also includes identifying supports and resources for those individuals so that they can have a safe place to get the services that they need, get them to housing, get them into recovery where we can. And it's a very holistic approach. It requires the support of the nonprofit sector, the city, the provincial government is doing things on that front too. And it will take some time, but we do have the numbers we're showing is that we are getting reduced instances in reporting that we have. The data shows that there's fewer reporting instances of social disorder within the downtown. So we are working very hard at this issue with the sector, and it's one I will continue to champion. That is something that will require ongoing investment in the future.
Hmm. All right. Well, thanks so much, Tom, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario. It's been great talking to you.
Hey, that was Thom Mahler, who is Director of Downtown Strategy for the City of Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor in chief of Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.